Hey, everybody, and welcome to Generally Speaking, the podcast that bridges the worlds of pop culture and personal development. I'm your host, Jennifer Snook. I am so happy to be here with you guys today. I hope everything has been going really well in your world. We have a lot to get into today, you guys. But before we get started, if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you reach out and smash that subscribe button. I would appreciate it. So I thought we should start with some good news, you guys. What about Ben and Jen on the red carpet together? How sweet was that? And also, how wonderful is it to see a couple who has been through so much together still be able to extract the love out of their relationship and the respect out of their relationship, to be able to come together and still see so much good in each other, and to be able to honor that goodness and not just get stuck in all the upset and the drama. And it really shows just such maturity to be able to look at someone and say, I love you so much, but I'm not meant to be married to you, right? Honestly, the way they've handled their split has been beautiful and honorable and really should be such an example for everyone, right? I really think that relationships are so complicated and they don't always end up in this fairy tale marriage that everybody has this picture of, that they strive to attain, right? I mean, really, love is messy and it's complicated and it doesn't always look the way that you thought it would. But real love doesn't die. Truly, it just changes shapes. And when it changes shapes, that's when you're able to look at that person and say, I'm not meant to live with you for the rest of my life, but dear God, I still love you and I understand why I loved you. And that is what real love is about, right? Like, I remember when I split with my ex-husband, so many people were dumbfounded by our relationship because I would look at him and have such reverence for him as a human and as the father of my kids. And I would just look at him and think, you are such a good person. And I'm so grateful that you came into my life. But that doesn't mean that we're meant to live the rest of our lives together. But dear God, am I grateful? And I would do it all over again to have that man be the father of my kids, because nobody could be better, right? And I will forever have reverence and respect and nothing but love for everything that that was and everything that that gave me and everything that that put into motion, because what we brought into this world was honestly world class. And the relationship that my kids have seen post-marriage between us has been something that has shaped who they are, because there's really never been anything but love between us. I would take a bullet for him still to this day. But anyway, sorry, I'm just saying, it makes me really happy to see other couples still able to live like in a version of love. And then there's Todd Nepola, the ex-husband of Alexia, who is not living in love. He's doing exactly the opposite, actually. Todd Nepola is now filing a lawsuit against Bravo, you guys, for millions of dollars, claiming that Bravo portrayed him in a way that made him seem financially destitute. He's taking the network to court, claiming that they lied about his finances, all in an attempt to make Alexia's storylines more dramatic. And speaking of Miami, Adriana De Mora is completely fighting back on Julia's claims that they had sex. Adriana is saying to anyone that'll listen that they didn't scissor. But that's not stopping anybody from going back and watching that Hamptons footage where apparently the deed went down. I said last week that I don't care what Adriana says, I believe Julia completely. Because why in God's name would she tell the world that she screwed around on her wife if she didn't? It just doesn't make sense. And speaking of some girl-on-girl action, it looks like we might be getting a little more, because little Miss Porsha Williams is apparently dating a dude and a girl, and she says they're both very nice. And then there's the Kentucky Muffin, little Miss Brittany Cartwright, who apparently is dropping a bunch of dead weight. Brittany just posted a picture talking about the fact that she's had some work done, and her breast looked remarkably smaller, but she also had some compression situation around her belly. So I'm thinking it may have been a whole boobs, belly, maybe a little mommy makeover. Now I'm just hoping that she deflates her lips a little, and then we'll have our Brittany back. And then there's Jen Pedranti's son. Remember in last week's episode when he was getting that tattoo, about how they said that he fainted, but I said that it seemed more like a seizure because I've never seen someone pass out and shake at the same time, but he was definitely, it felt like seizing to me. Well, apparently he was just at his military graduation and he passed out again. So I don't know. Jen made a statement saying that his body has just been under a lot of stress, but it seems suspect to me. But fingers crossed that her kid's gonna be okay. Anyway, you guys, it is time for a reality check. Potomac is back, everybody. And the show actually opens with Karen Huger, the Grand Dame, coming out of jail just after serving her sentence for her 4th DUI. But then we cut back to 6 weeks earlier, just a couple days after Karen has checked herself in to serve her sentence. All the girls are really rattled knowing that Karen is now serving time in prison, and so Giselle invites everybody over so they can kind of, talk about it and vent their feelings. Ashley arrives first, and her and Giselle talk about the fact that they're actually really worried for Karen and hope that she's in like the geriatric wing of the unit. And then when Giselle tells Ashley that Stacey is actually on today's guest list, Ashley tells her that she actually met up with Stacey, hoping that they could have a fresh start. Ashley says, I was giving her the opportunity to clear the air. And Giselle says, well, how'd it go? And Ashley says, not well. She just looked at me and says, Ashley, I can't believe you thought I was lying. I can't believe you thought I would do that. And then Ashley asked Giselle, are we going to get into it today with what was going on with her and TJ? And Giselle says, we absolutely are. Then all the women arrive, they all sit down, and everybody kind of vents their feelings about what Karen's going through and their worries for Karen in this situation. And Kiarna makes it very clear, Kiarna, who I absolutely love, Kiarna makes it very clear that what Karen is experiencing is the exact opposite of what Martha Stewart went through. And then Ashley turns to Stacey and says, so what's up with you and TJ? And they flash back to a montage of last season's reunion. And the girls all ask Stacey, have you talked to TJ since then? And she says, of course I have. And he wanted to come on the show to apologize and clear things up. He was very remorseful. He actually wanted to come on TV and say that he lied. And Ashley goes, well, that doesn't track because on his Instagram, he went on his story and said that he's not lying and he's actually ready to come forward with receipts. And Stacey said, I would not do that. I would not do that to get on this show. I wouldn't do that to get on any show. And Kiarna says, well, I have actually heard that you've been trying to get on this show for a long time. And Kiarna looks her in the eyes and says, you're a liar and I'm calling you out. You tried to cry on national TV and you couldn't even squeeze one tear out of that beady little eye. And everybody started cracking up. Then Stacey, who is honestly maybe the weirdest housewife I have ever seen, says, you know what? I'm so tired of being hurt. And what are you going to do? Question me every time that we're together? And Giselle says, well, this group is all about accountability. So maybe you need to think about this. And then Stacey stands up and says, maybe you're right. Maybe I do need to reconsider. And then she storms out. And right after that door slams, Giselle stands up and says, okay, well, we weren't going to talk about this, but now that she's gone, when Ashley and I were in LA, there was an actress sitting at our table and she approached us and she showed us receipts. She is actually TJ's best friend and she showed us receipts showing that he is actually suing her because she promised him 50% of her Real Housewives paycheck and now he wants to collect. Then we see Stacey meet up with her ex-husband. They go out to dinner. Apparently, they're trying to rekindle their relationship. At least I think that's what we're supposed to believe. I'm not sure if I believe that or if she just begged him back so that once again she could have a storyline. Because even everything about this feels fake too. When she walked in to meet him, she looked at the hostess and said, hi, I'm here to meet someone very special. What? Who talks like that? And then halfway through her dinner, she looks at him and says, I don't understand why we keep making these googly eyes at each other. I mean, is she serious? Then we meet Kay's mom when she goes over to check out her daughter's new apartment. Kay downloads her on where she stands with her man Greg, that same guy that was so grouchy last season every time he was on camera. Her mom gives her a little light schooling on her worth and what she should not be tolerating from any man. Kiarna's mom is pretty much done with Greg, but that was not what Kiarna wanted to hear. Then we're over at Wendy's house where Eddie is telling his kids that he's about to go away on a work trip to New Jersey to oversee the expansion of Happy Eddie, which he claims is creating a financial windfall for their family. But I'm going to tell you right now, I don't buy it. I really don't. Because I know a lot of people way up in the cannabis industry and the margins are low. And when I say low, I mean low, low, low. I mean, there used to be huge margins. Yes, there were at one point very huge margins, but no more. because once it became legal, it started getting taxed at every turn. I mean, to the point where there's almost nothing left on the bone for anyone. Nobody getting into the cannabis industry today is getting rich. It just doesn't happen. So don't be surprised if Happy Eddie goes belly up. Then Ashley meets up with Stacey to go shopping for Ashley's big event. And once Stacey gets there, they kind of get into the conversation again because Ashley says, last time I saw you, things were tense. And then Stacey says, yeah, well, I felt like I was being attacked. And then Ashley tells her, well, I want you to understand that just a few days before I saw you at Giselle's, Giselle and I were at this Black Essence Awards luncheon. And while we were at the table, we were approached by one of TJ's best friends, who is a very well-known, respected actress. And she wanted to talk to us. And she went on to show us a bunch of receipts that showed that you're actually being sued by TJ because you promised to give him 50% of your Real Housewives of Potomac profits. So we went into that meeting with you knowing that. And Stacey says, listen, I don't know who this made up person is. And Ashley goes, she's not made up. She's a very real person and she's a very well-respected actress. And then Ashley blurts out the name and Bravo beeped it out. But my sources tell me that the name on Ashley's lips was actually Shanola Hampton, who played V on Shameless. And I loved her. She is so amazing. And Stacey says, well, I can't control what people say. And Ashley says, well, you know what, Stacey? This is exactly why people think you're fake. And then Ashley says, let me ask you something. Are you even divorced? And Stacey says, I am absolutely divorced. And Ashley says, well, that's strange because I checked all of the Virginia databases and I couldn't find your divorce anywhere. Whereas if you were to look up my divorce, it's there because that's what happens when you get a divorce. It becomes public record. Then we meet Angel. She's friends with Kay. She's entering the group. She says she's a Maryland girl at heart and that even though she does have a resting bitch face, she actually has a very sweet heart. Her and her husband own a company called Wonderland, which provides luxury guided outdoor excursions and experiences, which honestly could not be more up my alley. I'm going to be checking out that website later. Angel and Kay go on a little walk to catch up, and Kiarna asks her how well she knows Wendy and she says, actually, I don't really know Wendy, but we did go to the same college and we did have some mutual friends. And then Kiarna goes on to tell her that she's actually felt some very weird vibes from Wendy on more than one occasion. And then it's time for Ashley's second bloom ball. Kiarna shows up with a crown, and Giselle shows up with a new friend that just happens to be a princess and a high-end realtor named Tia. And then that strange duck Stacey shows up, looking like the most beautiful black Barbie doll. Then Wendy makes her arrival. She clocks that Angel and says that I don't know her, but she does look familiar. And then it's time for the arrival of the Duchess, who is going by the name Ashley Darby. She slides down the stairs, she welcomes all of her guests, and then gives them a little history lesson on her life. Then Kiarna sits down next to Wendy and Giselle, who are having a conversation. And when Wendy doesn't include her in the conversation, she calls Wendy out for being rude. Wendy says, I wasn't being rude. I wasn't trying to exclude you, but Kiarna doesn't agree. And she tells Giselle that she'd actually like to have a word with Wendy. So Giselle exits stage left, and then Kiarna tells Wendy that she thinks that she's actually a phony. She tells Wendy that it was shady that she didn't say hello to her when they were in LA at that award ceremony. And Wendy looks at her and says, really? You want me to say hello to you when I'm on stage speaking? And then Kiarna looks to camera and says that she's just looking for a little accountability, but she is clearly not going to get it from Wendy. Then a very pretty and pink Stacey walks over to where Giselle is telling the new girl that Ashley is very nice until she's not. And Stacey says, which prompts Ashley to say, well, look, just don't lie to me. I mean, your breath can stink. Giselle goes, And according to just about everyone else in that room, Stacey looked beautiful, but her breath smelled really bad. And honestly, it must have been bad because everybody had something to say. Then Stacey asks Ashley if they can step aside and have a conversation away from that witch, Giselle. And then in all of her Stacey weirdness, she looks at Ashley and says, I hope that you can appreciate the fact that even after you were still rude to me and accused me of things that weren't true, I still came. And poor Ashley can't believe what she's hearing and tells her that something smells fishy. And it's not just her breath. She says to her, why are you still hiding things? And Stacey says, why are you so messy? And Ashley says, I'm not messy. You lie. You lie. She says, you've been lying this whole time and I've hit my limit. I'm done with this charade. Ashley says, take your size 11 feet and gallop away. A nod back to that weird dance that she was doing. Remember when they went away on that trip last season? That stupid dance that she did. She is so bizarre. Ashley says, you are a full-grown woman that came into this group and misrepresented yourself. And at this point, the whole party is paying attention. And then Ashley says it again. You misrepresented yourself. And Stacey says, don't put your finger in my face. And she says, you did. You misrepresented yourself. And suddenly Stacey's eyes fly open and she looks at Ashley and says, you are the devil. You are the devil. What? This chick, Stacey, she's too much. Honestly, I don't think she can. I know we saw the previews and we see that at some point she coughs up, but I mean, it's a lot deeper than that. Coughing up is just survival. Whoever this chick is, the fact that she felt like she needed to create that level of a lie shows just how screwed up she is inside. So anyway, I mean, honestly, to me, Stacey feels like the biggest fake and the biggest phony. And if I never see her again, it'll be too soon. All right, you guys, that about does it for this episode of Generally Speaking. Quick programming note, you guys. I just finished the most amazing book. It's called Trail Mix, Food for the Soul, and it is so beautiful. It is so powerful. It is so inspirational. I promise you, you will love it. And we are getting ready to have the author on. We are going to be interviewing her, and I am so excited about it, you guys. So watch for that drop. It's going to be coming soon. All right, everybody, I have loved spending this time with you. Thank you so much for being here. If you've been watching on YouTube, please make sure you reach out and smash that subscribe button. I would appreciate it. If you've been listening on your favorite streaming platform, please make sure you give us a follow, leave us a 5-star rating, leave us a comment. We would love that. If you'd like to collaborate or have a question you'd like answered on the pod, you can reach me at jennifer@jennifersnook.com. And if you'd like to find me on socials, you can reach me at This Is Generally Speaking on TikTok and at The Jennifer Snook on Instagram. All right, everybody, I have loved spending this time with you. Thank you so much for being here. And until we're together again, everybody, stay rooted in love. We'll see you next time.